Premium members, welcome to the No Spin News for Thursday, September 21st, 2017, Rosh Hashanah, for all our Jewish viewers, and we wish you a very happy one and have a great time. Big news day today, all right? And there's a lot of stories that we're going to lay out for you that don't have a resolution at this point, but may quickly, and they're big. First one is, remember back last March when Donald Trump tweeted on March 4th, terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found, this is McCarthyism. Then a few days later, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate. Bad or sick guy. All right, everybody remembers that. So the press jumped on Trump, no proof and this and that. Well, now it looks like Paul Manafort was tapped, wired by the FBI for a considerable period of time during the election process and then after President Trump won. Now, Manafort lived in the Trump Tower. So that's the reference here, okay? And the former director of national security, James Clapper, said on television last night he didn't know about this, but it's conceivable that President Trump and others in the campaign were picked up on the wire because it was on Manafort. This is a big story, and bigger than what it initially appears to be, because there are charges that all throughout the Obama administration that wiretapping was going on, perhaps illegally. And there are lawsuits in play about it. Media doesn't cover it. But one of them is by our pal Cheryl Atkins from Sinclair Broadcasting, who wrote the book Smear, which everybody should read if you really want to know the truth about the press in this country and what's happening, what the far left is doing. Smear is the name of the book, and I've mentioned it before. But anyway, Cheryl has sued the federal government because her computer was hacked while she was a CBS News correspondent. And so we're going to talk to her in a moment. Now, the importance of this story, and it ties right into Samantha Power, the former UN ambassador, who now we learn unmasked more than 200 people, 260 to be exact, as a member of the national security team under President Obama. Now, she was a UN ambassador. What does she have to do unmasking people? Unmasking means that they were picked up on a foreign wiretap and they're kept secret because the FISA warrant only allows for the party that is under surveillance to be heard, not who he or she is talking to. But you can unmask them if you have a reason, and Samantha Power apparently did it 260 times. So what this is all shaping up to look like is that under President Obama, there was a massive amount of surveillance going on. Some of it may be illegal. And that Donald Trump may be absolutely right when he said in March, hey, they tapped me, because he was obviously talking to Paul Manafort in my building because Manafort lived there. Now, I'm not going to jump to any in-stone conclusions, as many people do. I don't do that. I'm putting forth to you the evidence as clearly as I can. But now I want to bring in Cheryl Atkins, again, the author of the book Smear, who is in the middle of a lawsuit against the federal government. First, Cheryl, I want to talk about the Trump statement that he was wiretapped, and now this new story that's evolving. How do you see it?
Well, I see the media, when it suits them, leaping to conclusions and using generalities to get to specifics that weren't said, when it comes to President Trump. And yet also when it suits them, they parse his words with such fine detail that you can't even look at the big picture or the big story. This is what my article in The Hill was about, looking at the big picture of patterns and how many people surrounding Donald Trump and other, quite frankly, political figures and journalists were surveilled under the Obama administration, not suggesting they invented it, but we know much about what happened under the Obama administration through emails, leaks, and so on.
All right. So again, Cheryl writes a column for thehill.com. I write for them as well. And she states that the story is not really being represented to the American people the way it should be. And then she goes into her personal experience, which we will do in a moment. But let's just get back to Trump. At this point, with this new information, does it validate Trump's tweets against Obama?
It does to me, looking at it in a big picture sense. There were, according to reports now from CNN, the New York Times, and others, multiple either wiretaps or surveillance on at least a half dozen that we know of officials who were close to Trump, current and former advisors, before and after the election. You can come to two conclusions. You can think this was just routine business that our intel agencies were doing while they're busy cracking down on terrorism. They were also watching all kinds of political figures and members of Congress, journalists, and Trump associates. Or you can come to the conclusion that there's a pattern that lends at least the question being asked, was there sort of political targeting or a weaponization of the intel agencies?
Well, first we have to get the facts out, and then we can go into the excuses or the rationale. When the director of national security, James Clapper, says he didn't know about it, and which he did, he said, I didn't know about Manafort being tapped.
James Clapper also gave the false testimony to Congress, saying that hundreds of millions of Americans' information wasn't being collected. So I'm not saying he's not telling the truth, but I certainly wouldn't necessarily just believe. So
you're skeptical. You're skeptical of him. But the importance of him saying he didn't know about it is he's passing the buck now. He's not trying to justify it. Not just say, hey, we had to do it because we were interested in Russia and we didn't know what Russia was doing. He's saying, I didn't know about it. Don't blame me. If there are indictments coming down, don't put me in handcuffs. That's what Clapper's doing. He's covering CYA.
If he didn't know about it as the director of national intelligence or the head of all the intel agencies, that's questionable, because you would think something that important, if there really was the thought,
unless it was a rogue,
certain things,
unless it was a rogue thing going on. So now the story becomes very steeped in mystery. And again, we don't want to speculate, but responsible journalists are compelled to lay it out for the folks so you know what's in play. Now, Cheryl Atkins herself, as she explains in her column, was working at CBS News as an investigative reporter when her computer was hacked. Remind everybody what happened back then, Cheryl. What year was it? What happened?
This is around 2013, before any of the revelations had come forward about anybody being spied on, Associated Press, Fox News, before Edward Snowden, when sources from Obama's intel agencies approached me separately and suggested I was likely being monitored because of the stories that I was doing, which sounded crazy, of course.
Let me stop you there. So sources in the Obama administration told you it was happening?
People who work inside the intel agencies under Obama told me that I was likely being targeted and monitored because of the extent to which they said private citizens were being watched by the government. And the two separate sources told me, almost in similar language, that the public would be stunned to learn the extent to which the public was being spied on by our intel agencies.
All right. Now, what stories were you doing that might have upset the Obama administration's apparatus?
When they came to me, it was in the middle of Benghazi, but our forensics showed that there was the intrusion into multiple computers, personal and CBS computers, that I was using, as far back as me covering Fast and Furious, and also some green energy stories, waste and fraud and green energy spending, that the administration was very sensitive about. So it really could have been any of a number of stories.
All right, and just as an aside, and correct me if I'm wrong, CBS News had really no appetite for those stories, which is one of the reasons you left there, correct?
Yes, it's a bit more complicated, but for shorthand, I'll say they assigned me to cover many of these stories, and then midway through, as they started to develop, and we got a lot of pushback from the administration and certain other people, they would then lose their appetite for continuing down that road.
And we might remind everybody that Ben Rhodes, then President Obama's top advisor, is the brother of the president of CBS News. Now, your lawsuit against the federal government, explain what you're suing them for and where does it stand now?
We're suing them for constitutional violations of my family's and mine privacy and also freedom of the press. In two respects. This has been a difficult process. You have to get permission to sue the government. You have to survive a lot of challenges, which we have so far. We have to deal with their lack of cooperation at the Department of Justice because they're fighting every step of the way. But we allege that they improperly and unlawfully downloaded software, spied on my family's computers, including, my husband and my daughter would have been captured in that because they weren't being specific. They were just in our computers, that they literally were on the grounds of our property, doing mischief and accessing through our Verizon Fios line all kinds of information and material. And we have forensic evidence from 3 independent examinations that give these details with some specificity that we've put forward in court.
How long has this lawsuit been going on?
About 2.5 years, and
Wow.
It was sort of stuck in Washington, D.C. with little progress as the government unlawfully even failed to show up for discovery without filing a motion to challenge it, just didn't show up. But finally, this has been reassigned to Virginia. They call it the Rocket Docket. I think we'll see some quick movement in the case now. We have a hearing Friday. And, it's an uphill battle because we rely on them, the government, to provide us the information on who had access to the government IP addresses found in my computers, and they're not wanting to tell us. So it's almost a catch-22. But I don't think there's any better attorney than the one helping me, and I have confidence that if anyone can get to the bottom of it, he can.
Okay, excellent. But the Trump administration's Justice Department, under Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, they're not cooperating with you either, are they?
Right. As far as I know, it's all the same attorneys, fighting
So
the case
it's the
under Obama now.
career people. Yeah. Okay. Because once this gets out, I think that the Attorney General would say, "Hey, we want to find out what happened." So tomorrow, go ahead.
If you don't mind me saying, I think the appropriate thing to do would be for the new administration to simply say to its Department of Justice, follow the law, tell the truth, and give the information that they're asking for so we can all find out. If they claim the government wasn't involved, then
that makes sense.
The information we're asking, we'll see so.
Absolutely. Tomorrow's a hearing, and then you go forward. We're gonna cover this story. Is there any other press agency covering this story, Cheryl, that you know of?
Not that I know of. Nobody's really asked me about the lawsuit that I can think of, at least recently in any
I'm not surprised.
reporting since. And listen, to the extent they do, there's so much misreporting that was put out, the narrative was put out by the government that falsely stated this was imaginary and my backspace key was stuck and all kinds of things. This is malicious reporting and false and misleading. Sure. That's kind of what you're going to get, I think, if anybody does report on it.
Don't be too cynical, though. There might be some honest people out there. Newsmax.com is an honest outfit. There are some. Did you get any calls this morning to come on any of the cables to talk about this whole wiretapping and all of that? Did anybody book you today?
Yeah, I got called. This is the first call I took to do it, but I got called from pretty much every conservative outlet you can think of, and then just from some neutral radio stations around the country who do cover.
But not the Washington Post or the New York Times or any of that? No, okay.
No.
All right, well, look, you're in there now. People are starting to know about this. You do a Sunday show on Sinclair broadcasting stations across the country. I'm sure you'll talk about it this Sunday. You keep us posted because this is a big story. And we're going to follow it to the end. And we appreciate it, Cheryl, very much. Thank you.
I appreciate your interest. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, so just a footnote to this. Again, Samantha Power, former UN ambassador under President Obama, is now being scrutinized for unmasking 260 people. We're going to follow that story as well. And, the Trump administration has got to get on this. Look, it looks to me, and I'm not convicting anybody, you're innocent until proven guilty, it looks to me there was a lot of bad things happening here. All right, and the Iranian nuke deal, President Trump says he has made a decision whether to uphold the treaty or not, but he's not going to tell you now. Not going to tell me now. I've decided, I'll let you know what the decision is. I can't really call this. If he backs out of the Iranian nuke deal, all hell's going to break loose all over the world and in Congress. So does he want that? I don't know. Is he going to call for more stringent enforcement? More likely. More likely. Border wall. California, biggest state in the union, most electoral votes, most populated. Not biggest state area-wise, but more people live there than any other state. they have set themselves up under Governor Jerry Brown as a alternative government. That's what's happened. So the state of California is basically saying, we're not going to obey the federal government in Washington. We're not going to obey. So they passed a sanctuary state law, and now they're suing the Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, who is Brown's right-hand guy, is suing the federal government to stop the border wall, saying that it violates environmental regulations. So this is a con. They don't want, they being Sacramento and Governor Brown, the border wall, even though it's worked fantastically in the San Diego sector. Down in San Ysidro, if you've been down in that area, once they put that wall up, they stopped a lot of drug smuggling and people smuggling. And it's documented. All right, now out in Imperial County, in the deserts of California, it's a different story. They don't have a wall there. And that's where a lot of people are coming through. But the state basically wants open borders. The state of California wants open borders. Don't ask me why. I really don't know. It's, you know, it's almost inconceivable the cost to the state of California and everybody in America of this unfettered immigration. But the environmental thing in the lawsuit is a con, and I believe that the courts will eventually see it that way, but I could be wrong. A guy named Larry O'Connor writes for Mediaite, which is a fairly left-wing website, but he's a conservative guy. And he says that late night TV has become unwatchable to him and many others because it's not funny and it's all political. Now, there is this kind of nasty stuff going on between Jimmy Kimmel and our friend Brian Kilmeade on Fox News. Kilmeade criticized Kimmel for his stand on Obamacare. Now, I know Kimmel, and I like Kimmel, and I feel terrible for Kimmel's baby, who has had to undergo some heart surgery and has more to come. And Kimmel's point of view is that, look, I can pay for this, and he's covered, but other people can't. So we need this kind of health care so that the poor people with babies who are ill can get the babies treated. That's not a crazy, loony point of view from Jimmy Kimmel. Anyway, gently, Kilmeade, I thought gently, gave him a little jab, and then Kimmel last night on his show laid out Kilmeade. Be that as it may, it just demonstrates that late night TV is no longer what it was under Johnny Carson, where people in America watched that show. A lot of us did, because we wanted a little, relaxation and laughs before we retired. Okay? So let's bring in Dennis Miller, who knows about the late night landscape. Were you ever on with Carson, by the way, Miller? Did you make it on with him?
Yeah, I did 3 appearances, I believe, with Johnny Carson.
Wow. Did you meet him?
And, sure. I remember once I had my mom out there with me, and there was a brief knock at the door, but not the knock of somebody who was waiting for you to come. It was the knock of somebody. It was like, boop, boop. The door opened and Carson steps in. My mother, I wish we didn't have cell phones and all that, weren't as prevalent then, but just the jaw drop on my beloved mom was so funny that Johnny steps in. Hey, kid, funny tonight? I go, John, that's my mother. Hey, it's not bad, but it was so sweet. That Midwestern side of him would come out when he would meet older folks or mothers, or you know what I mean, very well mannered. So,
right.
Yeah, it was exciting. It felt like you're in show business.
Right, and they didn't. Nobody was bigger than Johnny Carson. Now, did you know what Carson's politics were? Did you ever see any political stuff out of him?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The thing about Johnny, and I saw this referred to either in the article you sent me or another article I read, was that he joked about everything, but he moved it along, Johnny, I think, had a rhythm in his head, and it was a rhythm that became America's rhythm because he was the leading practitioner. I know he would say never more than 3 jokes on a topic, and I know that he scored most off his self-deprecation, which was almost, I believe at some point, almost built in. If there was a joke on the cusp, he'd say, leave it in because if it tanks, I'm Harry Houdini.
I can make fun of myself. Right.
And then the third thing I would say is he probably threw darts at all the balloons, but he didn't flamethrow or anything. You know what I mean? He moved along.
Yeah, he pricked it. And he was on during the Vietnam era, all of the controversies, but he didn't do Jack Parr. He didn't do what a lot of these talk show hosts did. He kept it light. He kept it moving, as you said, and he was unbelievably and I think successful. And I think Americans appreciated that. Okay, flash forward to now. We got Kimmel, we got Colbert, and Fallon. And of the three, Colbert, his whole show is political, but that is scoring some ratings, although I must tell the audience, and you know this, they're a shadow of what Johnny Carson's ratings were. I mean, late night TV now, if they do 3 million a night, they're jumping up and down. Carson was doing triple that on some nights. So what do you think about the landscape now at late night turning political?
Well, first off, I don't think what you just said, and I know you're true there actually, but that doesn't mean absolutely anything. The whole universe of technology, it's like saying how many calligraphy pens were sold after Gutenberg invented the printing press. You know, everything's changed. Nobody's going to do Carson's number. Now, I can honestly say, I'm not being too cool for the room here. I don't watch late night television, so I have never seen Stephen Colbert's show.
Really?
But I would think that Stephen Colbert. Well, yes, you could take anything I say.
You might not be invited. You might not be invited on now. That's what I'm worried about. Go ahead.
I don't think I'm capable of doing it. I'm not. My chops aren't what they used to be. I certainly don't pursue late night television, and nor do they pursue me. I just don't think I have it anymore. But I will say this about Colbert. I would think, from what I do see in the ratings numbers, that he would be happy because I believe he was finishing third consistently.
Yeah,
and
last.
Trump, in an odd way, has resuscitated a lot of careers. I know Rachel Maddow was third, and now she's up at the top, and Colbert and Alec Baldwin seems like he's had his career resuscitated to a large degree. So they might hate Trump, but it must be an odd thing in their head where they realize that, quite frankly, their good fortunes right now are predicated on his victory as the president.
Now, if somebody forced you to watch late night TV, they broke into your house and you had a gun at your head, would you prefer to watch somebody who is just doing entertainment, or would you prefer to watch all of this social commentary, which is almost 100% left? Which would you, Dennis Miller, prefer to watch?
Well, you're asking me a hypothetical about something that doesn't. I just don't watch it. So I don't know. Just you pick the answer. Whatever one you pick.
Well, I'd rather be entertained myself.
I'd rather not watch it and watch Turner Classic Movies. That's what I how long have I known this? That many years. I like to watch TV to escape from the world. I don't like to be immersed in a very sad world right now. Plus, the country doesn't. I know Trump is the president now, and there are some things that I'm more in agreement with him than liberals. I don't trust Iran. I don't like giving them money and all that stuff. I do think North Korea has to be reined in. I know I'm supposed to think that he's Adolf Hitler. I don't think that he's Adolf Hitler. Hitler was Hitler. So all those things lead me to a point where not only am I not that interested anymore at my age, and I am interested in Turner Classic Movies, which I watch every night, I would have to go through consternation to watch late night TV, as I understand, because I think my opinions are decried. I'm sort of the naive rube, and I don't know who sidles up to that every night to be told they're stupid. No,
I think that's driving the audience away, and ESPN too. So Miller's on his way to Baltimore in about 2 hours. He's out on the West Coast, and I will meet him there for our big show tomorrow at the Royal Farms Arena. You on your game, Miller? You going to be up for that?
Yeah, I've been writing jokes. I have
new stuff.
I might do a comedy special next year, and I've got a whole new hour, so I'm going to work on that.
Excellent. I've got new stuff. Everybody's got new stuff. We'll see you tomorrow in Baltimore. Dennis Miller, everyone. Okay, and we wrap it up now with Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to paraphrase what he said. I was going to use a soundbite, but I want to get to the mail. Jones basically told his players, you better not protest during the national anthem. It's not the place to do it. Don't do it. And no Dallas Cowboys are doing it. Period. End of story. It's getting out of control in the NFL. Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, comes in, says, no, not on my time, don't do it. And the players aren't doing it. Okay. Carolyn is in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. Bill, your response to Trump's speech was spot on. Frustrates me the liberal media sees Trump as such a threat, but gave President Obama a pass for complete inaction. You know, that's a hypocrisy. I have a column on that today. It's in the Message of the Day slot. I wrote it for The Hill. I just lay it out. Carolyn, I think you'll like the column. Roberta Curtis, Leland, North Carolina. Will Trump attack North Korea if they continue their tests but don't actually attack any country? I do not believe so. I do not believe so. I think that Kim Jong-un, if he kills somebody, all right, if one of his rockets goes in and kills people, then you'll see military action. But they'll try to strangle him. Executive order signed today by President Trump says, anybody doing business with North Korea, you're not allowed to do business with the USA. Okay? It's pretty strong. Robert O'Hara, Hampton, New Hampshire. If they rename Houston, then what will they do with the city of Washington and Mount Washington in my home state? Stop the madness, you bet. Read Killing England. Arm yourself with the facts about Washington, Franklin, Jefferson. Go to your local school boards if they misbehave, and call your people and say enough of this nonsense. And that's what it is. Nancy Tippett, Grants Pass, Oregon. Nice town. Bill, love the podcast and books. I'm curious to know how you respond to the PC folks who feel that Washington, Jefferson, and the Founding Fathers should be discredited on the slavery issue. Many, in fact, did own slaves. It was wrong, but that's what life was in colonial America. My take on all the historical figures is you've got to know about their whole life in totality, okay? And then you, Nancy, and everybody else can make a judgment on whether you respect these men. Surely, the Constitution of this country, the freedoms we have, stem from a handful of men, and they weren't perfect. So I want you guys to know the facts. Cheryl Hornbacker, Bill, with monuments of noble people being taken down, are the leftists going to blow up Mount Rushmore? They would if they could, Cheryl. They would if they could. These are radical people. They don't like this country. Jane Cabes, Houston, Texas. As an alumni of San Diego State University, I'm horrified the university would allow a professor to ask white privilege questions. Since joining your podcast, I purchased a smear. We talked about that with Cheryl Atkins. And follow the College Fix on Twitter. Parents need to start thinking twice about where they're going to send their kids to college. Absolutely. Absolutely. University of Missouri, the best example, that radical campus, the admissions dropped way down. I think parents are wising up. The Chic in Tucson, Arizona, white privilege quiz was fun. When are they going to notice that bridal dresses are traditionally white and call that racist? Probably next week. You'll hear it on MSNBC. Vicki McKee, Dayton, Ohio. My local Kroger grocery store has a magazine book section, and your book, Bill, are always in their selection. So, you see, you're in more places than you thought. Kroger, I didn't know. Who knew? You know, thank you. Thank you. Christine McAllister just stopped at Costco, pick up Killing England. A checker said, good choice. The bagger said, this book is flying off the shelf. We love Costco. They're one of our biggest vendors. First day Killing England was released, sold about 70,000 copies. That's not too bad, thank you. And if you all like it, then you got to tell everybody. Julie Papillo, I recently retired from the state of Kansas. Looking forward to Saturday, September 23rd. Attending the Spin Stops Here show in Tampa. This will complete an object on my bucket list. Do you take questions from the audience? We do. Back half of the show, people ask Miller and I questions. It is a riot. Bob, Kansas City. Oh, by the way, Tampa, Amalie Arena, Saturday night. A few tickets remain. We'll switch you right over there if you want to see us. Great podcast, O'Reilly. I've literally not turned on the TV in a few months, except for the occasional Law and Order. What I want to see or hear is available on the net. Okay, Well, we're in the cutting edge of that. And finally, Charles, Colorado Springs, just joined as a premium member last night. I feel alive again after watching the podcast. Seems we live in a time where you can't make this stuff up is the new normal. You know it is. And we're going to fight the good fight. And the word of the day is don't be a jejune when writing to the factor. Don't be jejune, not a. Don't be jejune, okay? We will update everything because there's lots of stuff going on as Miller and I go to Baltimore and Tampa this weekend. And don't forget the kids' books, The Day the World Went Nuclear, Day the President Was Shot, Give Please a Chance for little kids. School has started, but, you know, they like it. Now they're involved. Get them something fun to read. And we really appreciate you being premium members. We'll talk to you again soon.